Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to cover the content update, the patch notes 3.17 for Path of Exile Siege of the Atlas with the Arch Nemesis League. And yeah, it's long as patch notes as every single time, right? But a majority of the patch notes that are written here are already covered, basically, when it comes to like the balance manifesto or the things that we read through. And that's why I just wrote down a couple of things that I want to mention, which I think are important from these patch notes. And obviously, there is a lot of like changes to the Atlas system, as well as all the base types of like bows, the rework of like the hand casting spells, as well as the on-hit bow that we covered on the balance manifesto. And yeah, there's like a lot of things in there that we already have covered. And there's like all the skills that also got buffed, and some of them got nerfed and stuff like that. So I know that people would like to have me sitting here explaining it, like, will Toxic Burst got buffed by something, or is it good or not? But I'm not doing that just because I personally think that Path of Exile is a journey, and you should always play what you enjoy rather than what is the best, and just stick to that, right? I think there is dozens of other content creators that are doing exactly that. So just check them out, and just don't complain on my stream then when your league starter was failing. Anyways, if you are interested, if you have an idea, if you say like, okay, my league starter is going to be Stormcall, whatever, you know, best way is to just open these patch notes and just use the search function and be like, okay, I want to play Fireburst, and I'm just gonna check out this specific stuff if I can, so I can tell now, okay, does my league starter survive, or is it just complete trash? For Fireburst, I can just say this line here now has a cooldown of 1.5 seconds, makes the skill completely shit for me, so I'm not gonna touching Fireburst in this league. Pretty sure I will not. Good. I would say let's go over what I wrote down here. 3.17 Path of Exile, Siege of the Atlas, Arch Nemesis, patch notes. So a couple of things here is something that we already covered or already know. For example, we're gonna have two new main bosses, which is the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, which is basically the new endgame bosses. Then we have new two sub bosses that are basically yeah, some minor bosses to the big ones, basically. Then they added God damn it, good. Added gigantic Atlas passive skill tree bonus and objectives and Atlas quests to receive the points from that. I think this is like one of the coolest changes they have done in a while, and I cannot wait until we get this Atlas skill tree, so we can actually see up front before the league starts what is our pathing in this Atlas skill tree, what are the nodes, where are they located. Hey, I want to farm Legion, you know, where are all the Legion points, and then I can like make like a template what I want to get, right? Because I personally think that something like Alk and Go, just like random maps that you want to have, or your favorite maps basically, since it's not region based anymore, is going to yield you a shit ton of currency. That's probably what I'm going to do. I just don't know exactly what points I need for that, so I'm probably going to make a coverage of that as soon as we have the public information about that. Then removed all Atlas regions and watchstones, and this is basically something that is going to go a long way in this patch notes. When I say removed watchstones, that also includes removing all the things that have to do with watchstones. For example, there were diff cards to give you like a unique watchstones. All these things are gone basically, right? Because obviously, if there is no watchstones, why do I need diff cards for watchstones? And this is going to be the same thing when I explain later on, when they remove, or at least they will remove, prophecy in 3.17. So what happens to all these like diff cards for faded unique items and so on. Then they added 4 Void Stones, which is basically the new Watchstones. 4 Void Stones for the entire Atlas, and they will drop on the Uber Elder encounter, the Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds. Then we go over the Arch Nemesis League, which basically 60-ish new monster modifiers and 35 recipes to combine them for greater rewards. This is basically the kind of like items that you're gonna get that you can use on these statues to empower the monsters, and then collect your reward basically. Then play through the league to discover more recipes. This is a little bit of a question mark for me, because as far as I see it, it's going to be like some vendor recipes, so I don't know what they mean with like discover more recipes, just that we're gonna find out the recipes, or if there's like a crafting bench wise where you actually find recipes. No idea about that, we're gonna see. Then they have a separate inventory for the Arch Nemesis mods, which is pretty cool, I think. I don't think they will drop too many of those, but still, at the end of the day, you want to have a clean inventory, because I think the inventory in Path of Exile is rather short. I would like to have like a bigger inventory, but with if they add more and more things like having a separate inventory for league-specific stuff, that will also free up the space in your inventory, which is also good, right? Then activate one of the 4 monsters bound to the Arch Nemesis statue using the mod item. This is basically, there will actually be more statues in the map on random spawn locations than you can actually use. I don't know how exactly that's going to work out. I would assume that there is like 6 or 7 statues throughout the entire map zone, but you can only use 4 of them at total, right? So if you've done your 4 statues and then you find the 5th one, you cannot use them. But this is basically to prevent backtracking. So not that you say like, okay, I know there is 4 in the zone, I only found 3, and now I'm just killed the map boss, and where is the last one? Now I need to find it, right? So this is actually pretty good adaptation, basically. Then 4 statues per region successfully defeat monsters will give you the mod item reward. Rewards are saved. Complete the 2nd statue to also receive the loot from the 1st and 2nd. That basically means if you use on your 1st statue, you throw in this mod item that gives you currency, for example, and gives the monsters empowered status, basically, right? You're gonna have this currency as a reward, but as soon as you encounter the 2nd Altower statue, basically, and you say like, okay, I'm gonna throw in the essence rewards, you're also gonna get the currency rewards from the 1st one and the 2nd one. That means, for example, if you use a currency related mod item on the 1st statue, and then you complete all 4, you will basically drop the currency one 4 times. So it's always like probably good to get like your most expensive and the most rewarding ones in the start, in the 1st one, so you encounter that like multiple times and get like more rewards out of that, right? And then mod items cannot be traded and therefore your own progress in the league. That basically just means that these items with like currency rewards or something like that, these items to activate the statues are not tradable. So whatever you're gonna do with them is your part. So, major new content and features: 13 new divination cards, 14 new unique items. Then they added the Ichor and Amber currency items to add implicits on body armor, boots, gloves, and helmet. These are basically the items that we discussed in the last video, where you can change your implicits and the tiers of it, right? Then added several new currency items to modify those implicits. These are basically the, Eldritch, Exalted Orb, Chaos Orb, Annulment Orb, and this is basically all currency based on these Ichor and Ambers with the implicits to change them, or the item overall when they are affected by either the X-Arc or the Hunger Dude. So then added an oil extractor, destroys an anointed item to get 1 oil used back at random. This is probably something, I mean, it's kind of questionable. Usually the items that you anoint if you play Trade League, and this is basically focused for me personally for softcore trade, because this is what I play, this is what most people play. Usually if you are willing to anoint certain items with golden oils and stuff, you will probably sell them and not like oil extractor it, but this could be for maps, this could be for items that actually dropped with anointment and stuff, so there's probably going to be some uses in there. Then adding scouting reports to reroll missions offered by Kirak. Added Survivor's Compass to store sextant modifiers. This is basically, since you don't have like 16, or in the previous versions of Path of Exile, the 32 Watchstones, where you actually applied the sextant modifiers on the Watchstones, it's pretty much the same now with the Voidstones, just you only have 4 of those. So if you just add these sextants and you're like, oh shit, this is a good sextant, but I cannot use it right now, then you can just use the Survivor's Compass to store the sextant modifier and then re-sextant the Voidstone, so you can just save that for later on or for selling it or something like that. So it's going to be pretty useful as well in PoE trade when you're like, okay, I'm going to farm Legion or something like that, and you're going to buy all the Survivor's Compasses that have a Legion sextant stored, basically. Then they added a mark on hit support for rare and unique enemies, just because they removed all of these sources of like Assassin's Mark on hit, for example, but this is like a new support gem that is just there to use or have like on hit mark effects basically. Then they added divine blessing support and eternal blessing support, so you can only have one blessing at a time. This is basically, people know that from the March of the Legion boots, so only one blessing at a time, but there is still two different supports. The divine blessing will basically work the same way as the March of the Legion boots, so you're going to activate the aura, you're going to have a certain cost for it, right? And then you're going to have like a 20-30 seconds buff from this aura. And then you have the eternal blessing, which is basically you're going to activate the aura as a blessing, but you are not allowed to have any other auras, but therefore it's like kind of like permanent, like a normal aura, just for no mana cost at all, right? So then we have minor new content features. Can have multiple blight encounters in a single area. This is new and kind of cool if you're into blight farming. I just hate blight, so I don't really care, but I think it was still worth mentioning here. And Ray Spectre's most recent monster types are now safe to your character based on the spectral limit, just to get like your specters when you like log out or die or whatever, right? Then Atlas and map changes. This is actually quite cool. So every single PoE league, like we used to have like 160, 170 maps, or I don't know how many in the entire Atlas, but every time when they work on the Atlas, they're gonna remove maps and add new maps from the pool. And basically, there has been a lot of maps disabled last league. For example, burial chambers. This is something I never understand. Like, why would you GG remove one of the most significant maps of all time? But therefore, this time around, we're gonna have access to burial chambers. So they added these maps while removing other maps, just to because we only have like 110 maps or so on the Atlas right now, and there is still like 170 maps in total or something, right? But the new maps we're going to have is Bazaar, Beach, Belfry, Bramble Valley, Burial Chambers, Cage, Chanel, City Square, Cold River, Coral Ruins, blah, blah, blah. You can read the list. It should be quite easy. I really like the fact that Burial Chambers is back, so back to the good old doctor farming, which I'm definitely going to looking forward to, just snap in like 12 favorite Burial Chamber maps and just permanently sustain them and just run them juiced with the Atlas progression. But therefore, we're going to use other maps like, or lose other maps like alleyways, or what else is like kind of interesting. I think Lighthouse, because of certain divination card drops. Park map is a pretty good layout that is kind of sad to see it removed. It's great that they removed primordial blocks, because there's like a couple of maps that are just shitty because of the endgame bosses. Reef map as well. But other waterways is kind of sad, but you know, we're gonna lose a bunch of good maps, but we're also gonna get a bunch of good maps back, and I'm definitely looking forward for some Burial Chamber grinding project for next league. Then the Val Temple is no longer on the Atlas, but still obtainable by corrupting tier 16 maps. And there is one side of one cool thing that I mentioned somewhere below. The way, like, who likes to run a Val Temple map other than one time for the Atlas completion? This is not any longer necessary, but Val Temple map is kind of like a shit map, because the end bosses are really hard, right? And they're gonna have like an enchant or something on it, so a special feature which gonna have like 10 Val vessels within the map that act like strong boxes. So if people corrupt these Val Temple maps, they're like, yo, that's actually good. I want to run them just because of the amount of strong boxes and just for the valuable loot that I get on top of a normal map, basically. Then the favorite map slots are now unlocked by defeating certain bosses or specific content. They added new sextant modifiers. The Maven's Orb is now called the Orb of Dominance and no longer drops from Maven, which is kind of like a bit sad, to be honest. Because what other reasons do you want to have to farm Maven, for example? Because the items that she drops are not really powerful, or at least they have usage in certain builds, but the amount of people killing Maven, and so the market is going to be flooded with all these kind of like like belts and the doppelganger disguise and stuff like that. So there is a lot of supply on the market, so all these items are usually pretty cheap. So Conquerors are now optional and work like Shaper and Elder Guardian maps, and I think also Kirak can offer you like Conqueror influenced maps, more or less, that have that the Conquerors will then drop like fragments to spawn Cyrus, basically the same way as like Shaper fragments, Elder fragments, and they're also gonna add all these like harvest, craft, benchcraft options, or at least like harvest options where you can like get all those Conqueror influenced maps, or revert or like change the fragments of it and stuff like that. So content and rewards. Awakened gems removed from Saurus and the Conquerors and moved to Maven and the Maven's Crucible. So the big question, why would you actually farm any Conquerors or Saurus anymore? Because Awakened gems was like one of the best sources of currency. I'm not sure. I think Saurus will still drop the Awakener Orb, but that's pretty much all that he drops. And besides the other like Conqueror Exalted Orbs, like, it's just sad to just completely ignore the fact that Conquerors and Saurus exist. I do understand that they want to bring it like an optional content, so you can do if you want to. But I think like if you want to do side content, there is a reason for it. You want to do something with it, right? And I'm not gonna kill Saurus if I already know that Saurus can only drop shit, you know. And some other people are going to kill him anyway, so there is going to be supply of like the what is it, the Savior Sword or other things, right? And like Conqueror's Exalted Orbs and Awakened Gems is basically nice sources of gaining currency by doing Conquerors and Saurus. And now they moved it to Maven, Maven's Crucible. I would just rather see it that both can drop it. So if I say, yo, I don't care about Maven and Maven Crucible, you know, I'd rather farm Conquerors and Saurus, I don't want to feel behind by doing other side content. So I would think it's a better solution if Awakened Gems would be dropped by both, basically. Then added various influence modifiers to the core affix pool. This is basically because the Conqueror influences are like one of the strongest to craft items, basically, and then your Awakener Orb, your like Crusader mod and your Hunter's mod and stuff like that. And since people are gonna farm a lot less Conquerors and Saurus, there's going to be a lot less bases and Exalted Orbs and stuff like that on the market. So that's why they added a lot of these influence modifiers to the core pool, so you don't have to have the influence anymore. For example, the Quiver with +1 arrow. Then they buffed the Maven drops, just because why would you farm Maven if she doesn't even drop Maven Orb anymore, right? The belts have now +1 max charge. For example, the Brutal Charge belt that I use, the Orange Anguish, that converts your endurance charges into brutal charges, will now give you 1 max endurance charge on top of that, right? And the Frenzy belt will give you 1 max Frenzy and so on. So they want to buff the Maven drop, so it's still valuable to kill them, but I personally don't think that this is going to be a thing. Because there are going to be people that farming that, so there is going to be belts in the market. Then removed simple and prime sextants as well as div cards for them. This is basically a change, like when you're going to get the Void Stones, right? Void Stones will drop from the biggest endgame bosses, with that being like Uber Elder and stuff like that. You know, where is the point of finding a simple sextant in a tier 2 map when the first time you could actually use it will be somewhere when you already arrived at the end game for getting your Void Stones, you know? So that's why they removed the simple and prime sextants, and in standard I think all the simple and prime will get converted into the what is it? Simple prime awakened sextants, right? So there will only be awakened sextants, and they're gonna drop later on at like T14 plus maps, I mean high tier maps, because as I said, if you find sextants in a tier 1 map, you have absolutely no use until you arrive in the end game. Then, as I said before, the Vaal Temple map now contains 10 additional Vaal vessels, which are basically similar to strong boxes. Then they buffed the Blight Ravaged maps, 40% quant value for chests instead of 20%. This is basically, that's something I encountered last league as well. I'm not a Blight farmer, I don't really care about, but I find a lot of Blight maps and I sell them. And I think like Ravaged Blight maps have kind of the same price tag as a normal Blight map, just because they are a lot harder, but the rewards are just not there, basically. It's not like worth it to do it, right? So that's why they buffed the Blight Ravaged maps. We're gonna see how much more valuable they're gonna be in the next league. Then they removed the prophecy mechanic from the game. Navali no longer appears in the game. Silver coins can't drop anymore. Some faded items got removed from the game, while others worth keeping are added to the core drop pool. Many items that had faded versions got now combined to similar to the faded version. The Atziri's Reflection, as an example, is now a rare drop from the Uber Atziri, and the Atziri's Mirror therefore can no longer drop, which I think is sad. I mean, it's on one hand good, but on the other hand sad, because the Atziri's Mirror is like literally the only mirror that I ever found. Okay. Then player balance. This is something we covered. This is all these like topics about the buffed gems and nerfed support gems and whatnot, all the changes to handcast spells, the hit-based bow attack builds from the balance manifesto. There's like a lot of information that I am, as I think, already covered. There might have been some minor changes and adjustments. You kind of see that on the very bottom of this list here somewhere. But there was like nothing too crucial as far as I saw. But there was one thing that they mentioned in the Balance Manifesto, which is they want to introduce a mechanic to empower Ignite, Ignite for attack-based builds. And so they added a threshold drill for that for Infernal Cry to deal much more Ignite damage. But that's pretty much all the information. The threshold jewel is not published yet, so I think they're gonna show that in the upcoming days or something, so we see how much damage this is going to be. Because if I think about Ignite based attack builds, I don't know, maybe a Slammer build, because for Ignite you want to have one large big hit to inflict an enormous Ignite, because Ignites other than poison cannot stack, right? But maybe I need to check how much damage this is, and then maybe try something like, what would it be? An Infernal Blow Ignite character, which kind of sounds funny as maybe an Elementalist or something. I have no idea, but maybe we can do something with it, but I need more information on how much more Ignite damage is going to be. And then we have the Kirax League mods, which is basically the Sana mod, but since Sana is basically gone or on vacation or trying to solve other family issues that we encountered, right? It's now the Kirax League modifiers with Fortunate that favors Abyss, Domination, Bloodlines, Ambush, Harbinger, Beyond, and Ritual. And I think if you're gonna fix your Atlas passive skill tree to spawn a lot of Harbies and Beyond and stuff like that, this could be like a very nice farming strategy. But as I said, I need to wait until they release the actual passive skill tree to then find out what the route is going to be for me. You know, everybody farms different, everybody likes other league specific content. But I'm like a fan of like just all can go, and so I'm probably gonna adjust my Atlas passive skill tree to just give me as many rewards without having any backtracking, without having league mechanics that hold me back or that are too time consuming in that case, right? I want to go in, I want to have like a shit ton of monster density, I want to blast through the maps, and then probably gonna work with stuffs like chances to drop guardian maps when killing the map boss and stuff like that, because these are things that will always yield you passive profit, as well as like the synthesized map drops and stuff like that. But we're gonna see once we have more information, and I'm probably gonna make a video before league start once we have that information. But yeah, that pretty much covers up the patch notes. What I think, it's pretty decent. I mean, it's still like insanely long, but it's also just because the balance manifesto is also like quite a large amount of information that is just copy pasted more or less into this zone here. And as I said, if you're still unsure about your league starter, you now have a chance to just check out the skill that you wanted to play initially, to see how much it got buffed, how much it got nerfs. And then we basically have to wait for like a PUB update to have all these kind of things implemented to see where's the current standing. But as of me, I'm just always saying, please guys, play what you enjoy rather than, oh, I need to check, I should league start things that are the most broken and stuff like that. As far as I can tell, Nightblade support still didn't got nerfed for some weird reason, so probably any like dagger, these kind of builds might be still like top notch. I might start a bow character in this league start just because bows got buffed, and I don't know when it was the last time when I actually played a bow character. So, but I'm not entirely sure in which direction the bow character is going to be. I'm gonna keep you guys updated for that. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.